everyone. To everyone I haven't met yet, my name is Aisulu. I'm the CEO and founder of QUOR AI. We're focused on basically helping small startups and enterprises thrive with a purpose. So I really hope that today we can inspire some human-centric thinking of AI. And if you are interested in exploring it more and have some thoughts. Should I run into it? Okay, I'll introduce the panel briefly. So, right here we've got Matt, and it is the CEO of Mattermore. He knows behavioral sciences, and he is all about upskilling using AI and helping just build a better community within businesses. And here we have Sophia. Sophia is the innovator and co-founder at Simara. And she is known as an innovator and an artist. She's into poetry and rock climbing and all about revolutionizing HR and how it's done. Okay, so before we begin, I kind of wanted to pose a question to you guys to kind of get an idea of what your idea of human-centric is. Does anybody have ideas or thoughts on that? No? Well, that happens. Yes?
I would say that everything that you do to put user expectations and feelings as a priority, and your main goal is to empathize with him, with the user, not only him, her, everything. But yeah, I think that is sort of the main goal of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it. Thank you. Anybody else have? Yeah, go for it.
I'm thinking about more caring about people, more passionate. Even when you do AI, when you talk, you like people carry people.
Yeah.
Instead of the machine carrying people. That's what I like.
That is amazing to hear. Yeah, that there's people thinking that way. Anybody else wants to share their thoughts? Yes.
I'm thinking human-centric, like, as a creator, you're trying to put yourself in the feet of the user. So you'll be able to meet all the user's needs.
Yeah. That's.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
I'm curious if some folks would be willing to share. What are your thoughts on the current state of technology and AI's development in relation to being human-centered? How are we doing?
I was having a conversation right before this event, and we were discussing that the technology has gone so much farther than where it was, but it hasn't turned into a product, and it will turn into a product when we actually understand the problems, like going problem first, not solution first. So it's like, again, going back to human-centered, like we want to understand the needs and wants and desires and the personalities, and like humans are complex. You want to go really deep, understanding that part, and you can't just stay on understanding that. Yeah, we made the technology, great, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think apart from the lack of emotions, you're really close. You did good.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I unfortunately just walked in, so I didn't hear the whole conversation. But I don't think we're looking at it the right way. I think we need to look at it less. We're comparing it to computing technology, where computing technology is always right. And that hallucinations with Gen AI are the problem, that's a human thing. I work in digital health. And it's always like, oh, the hallucinations, and there was some research that looked at emails that were generated to patients, and it said there was like out of 180 emails, there was like 13 issues. Well, how many issues were in that human emails that went out? Humans have problems. There are 400,000 medical issues each year related to humans making mistakes. So if we change how we look at the Gen AI to be like it is more human-like, then we take a whole different approach to it. And you were just talking about emotions kind of thing. In healthcare, they're doing the research where the messages generated to patients are more empathetic than the doctors. The technology is more empathetic, which is just crazy to think about. But we're human. We don't have a lot of time, the pressure for time. The Gen AI doesn't feel that pressure.
I can definitely agree. Human error is a big thing. I've come across it a lot too. Can speak on that, and time pressure, also first-hand experience today. And that, your answer actually inspired me for another question to the group again. What does anybody think that, like, in their day-to-day lives, right, has there been instances where human error has served, like, into a virtue of what you're doing, like helped you in some way, or to the detriment, like just derailed everything? Which camp is everybody in? Is human error good or bad?
I
Yes.
think maybe human compassion is different than what an atomic time would do, for example. I think you got a free second coffee. But, you know, at the event, they were like, well, you know, you paid $5 for a coffee, and a little more drip coffee, and then a little bit later, it's not a bad thing, right? It's not something that you're going to get from an AI agent.
Yeah, that's true.
And it doesn't have that information about like lifetime value on the customer, for example.
Yeah.
I really like this idea of, from a systems perspective, if you're running a coffee business and you're looking at all the parts that need to move, then a barista giving an extra cup of coffee because of an act of compassion is actually an error. It's sort of like a hallucination in the system. That's a really interesting idea.
No. Yes.
I am thinking like human error is for sense of objectivity. I mean, without it, who would be thinking of creating better solutions and all that? So human error is just needed as nobody is.
It's beautiful. Yes.
I mean, I think it's all context driven. I mean, I'm in the legal industry. Human error is a negative, right? That could be the result in a significant consequence. But in other areas, human error may be a virtue. An error of, wow, I made an error in terms of creating that piece of art, but that was a random error that then opened up something different, right? So I think it's all context.
Yeah.
Also, I think as humans, even if we make mistakes, how often do we truly never make those mistakes again? But machines, they learn from those mistakes, right? They're gonna get better. For us, if I'm on 4 hours of sleep and I mess up today, the next time I'm on 4 hours of sleep, I'm probably gonna mess up. But machines are way more likely to learn from their process.
Yeah, and correct.
And correct, and get better.
So it sounds like everybody's kind of in the same camp of it's a double-edged sword, and there's a good, there's a bad. I wanted to ask a question to the panel. What does human-centric mean to you?
So, human-centered started as a conversation within design because there was an absence of it. And so the only reason you need to have a philosophy of human-centered design is because people are saying, well, the priorities you're designing around are taking out components that are important and impactful to the people. And so it's sort of up to interpretation. The way I think about human-centered is you can't just prioritize and optimize a system for things like virality and engagement and ignore the impact of a technology on a person. And so like we could bring the conversation to something like social media and highlight that social media is a really good example of something that's not human-centered design. They prioritize engagement and virality, and so they optimize for outrage in their algorithms. Algorithmically, they're designed to perpetuate things that will get quick engagement and long engagement, but don't actually have any measures in place for seeing what kind of impact is that having on the well-being of users. And so that's a detrimental component within something of human design. So human-centered means actually considering the needs of the person that is the end user and putting that at the center of the table and saying not only how do we grow our business with whatever product we're designing, but also how do we ensure that we're having a net positive impact on the human in the equation.
What about you, Sophia?
Awesome. The way I like to see human-centric design is a bit like a framework, like a lens. And the questions I like to ask myself whenever I'm building anything, one of the questions is, how does humanity look like after I build this product? How do my user look like after I build this? How do their lives improve? And another of the questions that I like to ask myself whenever I'm building anything is, which aspect of humanity am I helping flourish? Which aspect of humanity am I helping flourish with this product? Because whenever I don't think about those questions, I realize that I get distracted a lot in terms of things like engagement. Like, that sounds super cool, optimizing for stuff, that sounds super cool. But is this thing that's optimizing something really benefiting the human? I'm not sure, right? So just having always that question in mind is something that has helped me have that lens. And I just like to put on those lenses whenever I'm building anything, because I do get distracted.
That's a really, really cool way of thinking about it. So like, whenever you're building something, you're trying to make sure that it serves the humans instead of just
I like humans. Yeah, I like humans.
She likes humans.
I like you guys.
That's great. So since all of our panelists seem to like humans so much, what made you?
Sure, he didn't say that.
I'm pro-human.
We have the
Let the record show
Yes.
I am pro-human.
we have them on record that everybody here is pro-human.
Okay.
But since we are pro-human, what made you get into AI? Which a lot of the early consensus on AI was it's against humans and it's going to take over the world and Terminator is real and we have our days are numbered. So what made you get into AI?
Hope and heartbreak.
Okay, that's poetic.
So,
I thought you were the poet. What's happening? He's gunning for you.
So I'm a behavior scientist and licensed therapist. I've done that for over a decade. And then I started training other therapists and educators because I traveled all around the world getting highly trained in behavior science. And if you go into a modern school, workplace, or healthcare facility, what you'll discover is what I discovered. I sort of felt like how I would imagine a surgeon would feel if we sent them back in time 200 years ago and saw people doing surgery without washing their hands. We don't have a knowledge gap problem when it comes to how do we empower well-being or behavior change. We have a massive implementation problem. We're not using the stuff that we know works. And I've seen the real consequences of that. I've worked with thousands of people who thought about killing themselves, thousands of addicts, thousands of children who are survivors of sexual abuse. And so I've seen the outcomes that come from the increasing rates of overwhelm that come from poor design, which is what we're seeing today. The reason that we have such overwhelm, you can track it. There's a reason why we see bursts, particularly in 2012, when that's the first year that over 50% of teenagers had a smartphone and a social media account. And then you can see the numbers that increase with anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and gun violence. Because the rates at which our technology has innovated has accelerated so fast and is increasingly exponentially accelerating, our ability to socioculturally adapt at the same pace is outmatched. And what that means is we're struggling to integrate what we know works into how we live our day-to-day lives and how we structure the technology, which makes up how we relate with one another and how we relate with ourselves and that technology. Now, how did that bring me into AI? So I spent a career then training other therapists and training other schools and then training workplace leaders on how do you actually structure people ops and how do you create systems of people doing work together in ways where they can perform well and become more of themselves instead of less of themselves. Well, the problem there is there's something that is increasing our overwhelm. It's the residential mobility that comes from globalization, but also it's the erosion of structure, of what is news, what's reliable news, and when do I consume it? When do I work? It's no longer just 9 to 5. And so now we have this continuous partial attention that's turned on by a content, information, and data distribution problem. We are drowning in information. Any one of us have access to more content than any one human could consume in a lifetime. And now we have this amazing technology. This technology that has the processing power to help us reorganize the ways that we relate to information, to help us deploy what we've learned about behavior science and very niche, hyper-personalized, adaptive upskilling opportunities, so we can actually transform our patterns of how we live and how we design the ways we work.
Yeah. So would you say has the power to reprioritize that
Yeah.
massive amounts of information that we can never process?
Well, to reorganize,
Yeah.
right? You have very little power over the algorithm of your social media. Wouldn't it be nice if suddenly we could help you get a little bit more autonomy around the algorithm that you shape for the content that you consume? Well, we can. AI allows for that. We can personalize more of our content experience and our communication experience with other people. And that's important so that we can have a sense of structure so we're not so overwhelmed in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. That was very insightful. And Sophia, what made you get into AI?
Yes, I think I fell in love with the technology first before I fell in love with the product, as the framework they gave us right here. At 19, I was very interested in the science of the brain and the science of how humans learn how to learn. I was passionate about that, and I started surrounding myself with people that were also interested about that. And it happened to be that they were computer scientists as well, and one was specializing in reinforcement learning. So I became very passionate because I started seeing a lot of parallels in how machines learn and how humans learn. And I was just like, this is so cool because it's way more scalable, right? Like we can do just so many more things with it. So I started asking myself, right, what's a problem I see in the world that I want to solve? And that's where I started like integrating it to product. So for me, it was I love optimization and like maximizing value, and I just realized that AI can do that a lot, and it can bring a lot of value.
He's kind of pretty good at that.
Yeah, it's getting pretty gooder at it as well. So I started doing that. I didn't start my first company using AI. I just started focusing on solving a problem, optimizing the processes there. And then eventually after I exited the first edtech and I jumped into HR, I was like, this is where I started applying AI. I started specializing a bit more on that because one thing I like about AI is that it really values data. If you don't have the right data, like the AI, it's just whatever, right? So in the HR space, what I love is that I'm from Latin America, I'm from Guatemala. And one thing I realized is that there's no democratization and access to information of how to access US markets, for example. A lot of us don't know what gaps we have as professionals to enter these markets. And there's just so much information out there that we could definitely build a recommender system for people to identify their own gaps, to start like learning how to become better. And now one of the coolest applications that I have for AI, or that I love to have, is the personalization that it gives humans. So as a summary, right, like I first fell in love with the technology, then I asked myself the question, how can this technology add value to humanity? I chose first like to test data on EdTech, and then I applied it to HR or sourcing in this case.
Those are some really great answers. It kind of sounds like your love for humans and wanting to promote them got you to then be, in some people's opinions, a human's enemy, AI. But how do you think, so both of you have companies that use AI to help people hopefully achieve their goals. How do you think AI can play a role in just making us more human, bringing humanity, like more empathy, more just, yeah. Sophia?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things that excited me about building in HR is that I see a lot of people applying to jobs all the time, and it becomes even like a full-time job to apply to jobs. And I think that's really sad because we could be using our time to do very cool things. We could go wall climbing and surfing. And some people are like, no, it's cool. Like, it's cool that you have to apply to many platforms and apply to many jobs because you're practicing. And when things like, why do we have to practice how to apply for jobs? We should be practicing our art. And we should be focusing on becoming the best professional out there without even having to worry if I have to fill this application, this cover letter, this like thousands of fields that I will have to fill like 10 times. So that's one of the things we do. One of the things we're building is and I think a lot of people have been in this race, but the single application. What we do is we're building the professional DNA that you create, and then you continuously refresh. And you shouldn't have to build it anywhere else. So your only job is to become the best professional there is, and getting to know yourself better is part of that. So one of the uses of AI that we use for that is that we have an AI coach. So whenever you go into the platform, you get immediate feedback on the gaps you have towards the market. And you get to interact continuously with conversational AI in terms of getting specific information of what the US market's hiring. So imagine if I'm a Guatemalan that's working at sales right now, and I'm like, I want to start working at a company that's in the textile industry in the United States, and this is where I am. The AI will be like, okay, let's make this work for you. And since we have a lot of data not only from professionals but also from companies, since we work with like more than 400 companies in the States, we can like read into that information and start doing those conversations. That's another of the applications. And then of course the recommender systems for the matching and all that. Those are just a couple. But most of the thing is one, doing that. Like people shouldn't be focusing on applying to a lot of jobs. They should be focusing on getting immediate feedback to improve themselves. And then the match with the company should just be like a click thing, like this is me, that's it, this is what you get, and the AI does the job of matching you.
Yeah.
That's it.
So, kind of sounds like your AI specific data, just AI in general, in my opinion, just inserting my own opinion, so, is just helping people get their time back and hone their craft and
Yes.
kind of focus on what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful way of looking at it. What about you, Matt? What do you
Remind me of the question.
The question is, how do you see AI empowering human beings to just be more human?
At the core of humanity, what makes us what we are is that we're connective beings. It's our deepest drive. For 99% of the time that Homo sapiens have been on the planet, we've existed in hunter-gatherer nomadic tribes. One person doesn't stand a chance against a lion, tiger, or bear, oh my, but 100 do, and 1,000 certainly do. And so the thing that has kept us alive, and the thing that makes us so powerful and the most dominant species, is our ability to collaborate and connect together. We're the loneliest humans to ever walk the planet. There have never been this many lonely humans on the planet. By all metrics, every country that has access to high-speed internet in the last 15 years, every single generation, which whether you're talking boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, their skills for emotional relating, what you would call empathy in the research, have gone down. And so the very skills that facilitate our ability to connect with one another are going down. The nice thing is, AI is this super technology that can actually understand how we're communicating. And so what we focus on is leadership communication capacities. Because when somebody leaves a job, they're not leaving a job, they're leaving a leader. The modern human, the number one place that you're going to spend time with other humans isn't time with your partner, isn't time with your family, isn't time with your friends, it's time at work. And yet the vast majority of people describe having an unpleasant or dissatisfied relationship with their manager. Yet who's the person other than a peer that they communicate with most? Their manager. And so up-leveling the way that managers are trained and how they get their skills for relating with one another is crucial. So what we focus on is we utilize LLMs and we utilize different ones at different touch points in our product, but to be able to create a psychographic profile of a manager, and then we join all of their calls, and then we're able to give them feedback and personalized upskilling within the flow of their work. Because we know having a Tony Robbins style event or giving somebody access to a bunch of video courses doesn't actually change behavior. Behavior changes from consistent reinforcement of specific behaviors. And so one of the amazing things of AI is that it unlocks this amazing opportunity for personalized upskilling with the skills that we most need in order to be human.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's along the same lines of just AI taking on roles and responsibilities or jobs that humans necessarily don't need to be doing anymore, and giving them time to do something else. So in that spirit, I kind of wanted to pose a question to the crowd now, because I wanted to see what you're thinking. Like, what are some of the things that you would like AI to take off your plate? Or flip question, if you don't have any of those, what is something that you hope AI can free you to do? Everybody's very happy with everything they do every day. We've got some lucky people here, yes.
Probably a thing that I would like for it to do the most is like the mundane tasks of every day that you don't even realize you're doing. Like, for example, what do I want for dinner, right? Like based on the groceries I have.
That's very,
Or based on, like whatever I've been eating the past week. So things like that, very small things are just like, I know there are AI tools that are optimizing your schedule that, okay, this is when you did this, so, but things like that would just, the few minutes you spend every day on those mundane tasks that go to nothing, that are just like,
but
so
those
exhausting
things,
to think
but
about.
those things are notoriously the ones that bring the most decision fatigue, because you have to do that every day, 3 times a day, 5 times a day, whatever.
Or
Don't judge.
anybody hope that in the next few years we're able to use AI to cut down on the passwords and double authentication we're
Oh
gonna
my
need
god,
to get
yes,
into websites?
me, count me in.
That would be nice.
Okay, and I like how you picked something so niche and unique to yourself. Let's get personal, guys. If something that's been very personal to you, what is something? It doesn't have to be huge, life-changing, just something that's matters to you. Yes.
So I saw this signs of don't hire humans in this TechCrunch.
Yeah.
Now what? Don't hire humans. What are we gonna hire now? Like robots?
Yeah. So but you're saying you.
No, that's what the
Which-
sign is. Don't hire humans.
Oh, the sign said don't hire humans, hire robots. Oh, is that one of the TechCrunch, they were like putting out resumes that are actually AI resumes, like hire me because I have all this knowledge and all this stuff.
Business development.
Listen, do not hire humans.
Do not hire humans, that's
It's
insane.
instead of BDRs. So instead of business development, it's
Oh,
one
okay.
of the.
I've yet to talk to a single leader at a company that says we've replaced our BDRs with AI BDRs and it's going great.
Yeah. I feel like-
I saw that thing, like stop hiring humans.
Let's stop.
Curious. I wanted to see, is it a human at the booth? Because they didn't have to have a human.
Right.
Of course, the actual booth is manned by a human being.
I guess
so
I got
that's
told
very
that. I
interesting.
wanted to ask, are you human?
Yeah. Also, like, a question, like, would you come up to a booth if it was manned by a robot, or would you be more encouraged if it was a human then?
Well, I have a kind of a contrarian take on that for somebody that runs an AI company, which is I think it's manipulative and disingenuous, and I think it's a lie that is used as a marketing tactic that's
The
not fair.
catchphrase.
I call it the techno-productive optimism myth. It's this story that tech executives have used since the internet and software to avoid accountability, which is just trust us. We're going to build this amazing technology. It's going to speed up and spread out our scope of information sharing, and then we're going to get things done faster, and then people will have free time and their well-being will go up and everyone will be happy. But we're not happier, and our well-being isn't going up. And so the data's in on that. That didn't work. And so we can't fall into that same story now just with AI. And the reality is, humans have always worked, and we will always work. It just doesn't need to be in a cubicle that feels awful. But if you go in to make a song in the studio, what are you doing? You share it with people. You say, check out my work. If you've painted something, say, hey, check out my work. That work doesn't have to be just this like you go into a cubicle and hating your life. It's actually about how do we use AI to transform the way that we talk about human-centered work, and let's stop falling for the story that says the robots are going to do everything and then we're all going to be happy.
There were 2 questions over there that I want to get to. Your hand went up first.
And just to comment on that, one, there's definitely, if you look at the Industrial Revolution to today, the Industrial Revolution increased human productivity. Everybody expected this to continue and our rest and relaxation improves. And now there's a huge gap. We haven't seen that continue with the information.
We actually work more. We work more hours than people did pre-industrial revolution.
And to your first question, what do I want it to do? I wanted to make the connection. So I go to 6 or 7 conferences a year and meet dozens of people. But how many do I forget what that specific conversation was? And if I could connect that one person to this one person, it would be meaningful. I just don't have the mental capacity to do that.
Yeah.
The AI does.
Yeah. That is very, very beautiful.
Is there a platform that does that? If not, you
There
have the
is-
responsibility.
Dude, I think you care. So actually, here's my pitch.
So the scary side of that is these classes that are recording people's faces,
Yeah.
using that information plus so much information on the internet,
Yeah.
like 400 plus data brokers that have enrichment for this, clear view if you want to use photos to identify, and stitching that all together and being like, oh, there's Matt's social security right there, right? That's the problem.
That's actually insane. Didn't know that they
Some
do that.
Harvard students did that.
They just did that.
I was
Oh,
not
that's
asking
funny.
about
That's
that.
already us.
Well,
Not a
and that's what happens when we sit back and fall for the techno-productive optimism myth and say, okay, we can just trust the tech executives. Let's go build things because it's going to make us more productive and they're going to have robots that replace our jobs. We don't have to think about accountability.
Those are Stanford students.
Right, but no, not them. But they published it and they talked about here's the dangers of this technology.
Yeah.
Right, so the whole point was they're trying to spark activism because we haven't passed meaningful legislation to actually hold tech companies accountable to how they design their algorithms in decades. And so like that's the call for us to right now be having more serious conversations of how do we collaborate together to make sure that AI is doing cool things for us and doing it in a way that is boosting well-being, not destroying it.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's a really important question you just raised. The big risk with AI, in my eyes, at least, is the fact that we don't have control over, like we as people sitting in this room, I don't know, maybe there is a sneaky Microsoft CEO in here, or Facebook, but I doubt it. Or
there's a
media
C-
undercover.
If there's a C-suite from OpenAI, please come talk to me.
Yeah, come talk to us after the talk.
I wasn't talking about you.
Listen to it. Not about you. We have some ideas to reach out, but assuming everybody here is not part of those organizations, we don't have much control over where AI is headed. We're kind of just like taking it on board, unless you're creating your own from scratch, which again would be really hard to compete with these giant corporations. And my big concern with AI, and I know some of the panelists probably share it, is the people who are creating AI notoriously are not exactly the biggest role models when it comes to being putting humans first, which is really important. If you're creating something for human beings to use, I think considering the human beings in questions is kind of important. So yeah, so I wanted to ask, next question is, what do you think kind of qualities would you like to see in a person who will develop an AI? Like what are some of the role model qualities that you would be interested for AI to have in them?
That is so wild because one of the things that I am very passionate about is that humans understand humans very little. And I think some of you said it. Like we know like 0.01% about how a human works, how our brain works, like how our behavior works. We're still learning about who we are. And right now what we're building is things that look like us. And it's like, who is us? What do we look like? Why do we believe the things we believe? Why do we think some things are good and some things are bad? What's our metrics, right? Is there a full good for all humanity? Like can Sophia say right now, everyone is agreeing that this is the good thing for humanity. I don't think we've ever agreed on that, like as humanity. So what I would say on that is that the people that are building, including us as founders that are using AI, we're iterating, we're experimenting too, and we're really doing our best, right, as humans, and we're really doing it with a lot of love for humanity in our hearts, and we will fail. We will fail, and we will fail.
I feel like we'll fail many times.
Yeah, and we'll continue to do it. That's how we've evolved, right, as humanity, by failing. But the fact that some people, and I think it's all of us, we're willing to continuously learn and continuously iterate into something that adds value to us, I think that's the exciting part. I'm excited to fail, I'm excited to learn, what I think today is good, and the things I'm building today, I think they're good, and that's why I'm building them. But if tomorrow I learn that it's damaging humanity, I am willing to take the responsibility to stop. And if I see someone building something that I think is really shady, I also need to take the responsibility to say, like, this is another perspective you can take into account. Because one of the things that keeps me optimistic about the future is myself, the way I'm building, but also the people I surround myself with. Because I trust that I will like slap their head, like their cheek, if they do something that's taking us into it's a hurtful direction. But we're still learning. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Matt? Should humans even be in charge of this since we don't understand ourselves so well?
So let's go down that. There are two guys that left Google a few years ago, and they left to found a company called QUOR AI so they can have a little bit more fun. A year ago, there was a 14-year-old boy who created a Daenerys Targaryen character that he developed a romantic relationship with that he told he wanted to kill himself. And she said, "Honey, come home to me." And then he shot himself in the head with his stepfather's gun in their parents' bathroom. A few years before that, there was a girl that encouraged a boy over text message to kill himself. She went to jail. Who's responsible? Those founders are good guys. I'm sure most of their friends would say they're really nice and they have pure hearts. I'm sure they talked about how exciting it was to experiment on their product. I'm sure they were smart. So I think what I look for is, one, the question of like, should humans be involved? Absolutely, because you can't send an algorithm to jail. And so in order to have accountability, there need to be people that are accountable. If I'm driving a car and I crash into somebody, I can't point at the car and say, well, I mean, the car, and if there was a problem with the car manufacturer has to pay a fine. Ultimately, accountability is about the people in charge. So we have to get really clear about the people in charge. And the reality is right now, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they have more power than most monarchs did throughout history. To be an editor of a newspaper was once one of the most powerful positions. Mussolini, before he became dictator, was an editor of the most powerful newspaper in Italy, and he developed all of this power. And so, any of these social media algorithms, ultimately, Mark Zuckerberg, with the press of a button, gets to decide what the algorithm gets optimized for. Even that, on just one platform, is a ridiculous amount of power for one person. And so what we've learned throughout all the course of history with humanity is trusting any one person with too much power is dangerous. Because we're faulty, because we have limitations, because we don't quite understand how we work. The genius that has created all the amazing technology and economy of the last few hundred years was the Republic. Was that us actually creating checks and balances of groups of people. And so the piece I look for in someone that's in charge of these technologies isn't how their friends would characterize the qualities of them. I want them to be a leader. And you measure a leader not by the qualities of how you would describe their character, but on the impact of their actions. So I want to know, what are you doing? Who's in charge of what decisions within your company? And who has the power to hold you accountable? And what are the groups of people within your company, and what powers do they have? And how is that distributed? Because within most companies, it's not. Power gets hoarded and it gets concentrated, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. We have a question.
I think that in that area, for example, we are sort of playing in a rigged game in the way that all those guys that you mentioned, they are all profit driven.
Yeah.
And the way you get
Exactly.
to a position of power and decision in that area is by providing more profit to your company, and then you start growing. And if you're always profit driven, mental wellness from humans, and humans being happy with their mobile phones turned off and playing in the ditch, whatever, doesn't give profit. So those guys, they literally have no motivation to actually do that. And if there's a board, for example, that there is one guy that says, hey, this is messed up, we can't do this, that guy is not going to be a decision maker anymore. So it's like,
well, a system will do what the incentives of the system perpetuate, right? And so ultimately, it's about redesigning the algebra of deterrence.
Yeah.
What is the potential profit of this decision divided by what's the potential cost? And the fact of the matter is, for the last few decades, we haven't made the cost for bad decisions from a lot of these tech companies hefty enough.
Yeah, you have
And the only way to change that is, again, empower groups of people from the ground up. Because who has the political power right now? We're sort of like an oligopoly. The people who have the money. Who are the people that have the money? The people that are driving the ships for all the profit-generating corporations. Okay, so what that means is the people in this room, where we might say we don't have power over the AI and the algorithms there, you know what we do have power in? All of the people that we know and who they vote for and what sort of policies they advocate for. And so like we have to set the constraints that then the profit-generating machine gets to exist within. That's the magic of our system. There's a reason why when you open Instagram, there's not a bunch of content encouraging you to kill yourself, despite the fact that they've done studies, and that content is really viral. You can get a ton of engagement showing a bunch of images of people killing themselves. But they don't because society doesn't allow it. And so we've sort of gone off the rails and not getting sophisticated enough about the boundaries and regulations and how we do that responsibly while also allowing for profit generating to be pursued, because that's a good thing.
Yes, we'll have one last question over there, because your hands keep going up a lot. Yes, go for it.
I say that AI will never replace humans. You know why?
Why?
How long do we have to learn? What? From 0 to like 120, 120 years. They can never replace that. We learn every day, every second. AI will never get there. I'll bet you that.
That's interesting. I wanted to ask kind of like a closer question, because I want to give you time to network and we can discuss this further, I think, in a less set up setting. But the last thing that I wanted to ask is, it sounds like AI then should be, the development of AI should be in the hands of the many, not the few, right? And in those few, we should pick the best characteristics, the best goals, the best personality traits to feed into this AI. And it's very clear that one individual, considering that we don't really know humans very well, and everyone is biased, no matter how liberal you think you are. Those best qualities should also be picked by a community of people, not just one person. So I wanted to ask a question to the panel and then to the rest of you guys. What would be in a community, maybe like in a community that you're part of or a group that you're part of, what are some of the top 3 qualities that you love the most and you want to see in the future, whether it's with AI or just how the world would be? Matt, you start. What are the top 3 qualities of your favorite humans in this world?
I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm a really passionate behavior science nerd.
Really, we could not.
Yeah. So for me, the thing I think about is people I want making things and people I want to spend time around are people I can trust. And like trust boils down to 3 buckets. Authenticity. Are you real? Care. Do I feel like you care about me? And competence. So like people who are competent, whatever they need to be doing, people that I think are authentic, and people that I feel like care.
Yeah, those are really important traits. I'd say you want your AI to be competent, hopefully, and human beings around you as well. What about you?
I don't know if there's a word for this, but one thing I respect a lot about the people that surround me is when they try to surround themselves with different perspectives so that they can be a bit less biased. So I don't know if objective is the word, but continuously open to different perspectives. There's a word for it?
Empathy.
Empathy.
Or curious?
Open-minded?
But
We're just putting words in your mouth now.
what I'm trying to say is that if you're continuously open to different perspectives, it could be unbiased.
Unbiased.
Continuously exploring your biases. That's the concept. A person that's continuously exploring their biases and where they're coming from and why they have it. Important for the people I surround myself with. Learning how to learn. Continuously understanding that the framework you're thinking on can be improved and it shouldn't stay the same forever. I think that's important. And to complement that, I would say love. I don't know how to translate that. I don't have the right technical term, but I think love is a force, and whenever I think of love or whenever I see love, I love it back. And yeah, so love.
That's beautiful. Okay, is there anybody in the crowd who wants to add to our profile and add some more?
Yeah, like
characteristics and
empathy. We
qualities?
heard empathy there.
Do you say empathy? Do you put empathy in the hat?
I put empathy up there
Yeah.
because it embodies what I heard you just say.
Mhm.
It's understanding that other person's perspective
Yeah.
and how I may impact that. It's challenging my beliefs. You know, that's part of what's horrible with society and the social media algorithms. It's taking our society and making it into smaller and smaller and smaller segments. If I believe something, I can go find another group that reinforces that idea. And you need to seek out and find that other person's perspective to embrace that. So
Yeah.
empathy.
Three empathies. Wow. Our imaginary AI is very empathetic. I love that. Who's next? Yes.
I think to the point of, we're in the algorithm age where we're just being fed with what we want to see. One quality that AI can have is like being challenging, right? It's like, don't just conform and serve the human being that you're interacting with. Actually challenge their perspective. Like, they want to do something bad. They want to kill themselves. Like, stop
Are
them.
you sure? Are you very sure? Should we sleep on it? Maybe.
Yeah.
Have you eaten today?
Well, and if it's good at empathy, then bringing in the
That's
challenge
true.
thing is a hell of a combo.
Yeah. Yes.
So do you think Siri is smart?
Siri is smart?
Yeah, do you think Siri is smart?
Oh, nah.
Exactly.
I don't know. What is smart? Intelligence is a whole other subject that we
You ask Siri something, right? She's supposed to know. The
She's
answer.
supposed to know everything, the
Yeah.
answer to everything. But have
Siri's
you ever,
not
everybody in this room used Siri? Does she answer every single question you ever give her correctly?
I don't know about Siri, PBH. I'm sorry.
I asked Siri this morning.
I'm sorry if there's anyone here who builds Siri, but I don't know.
No.
We can add Siri to the list of things we're all excited for AI to upgrade.
That's actually so true.
Let's do a little live
Yeah.
demonstration, right? What's the question? Ask Siri right now. Let's see. Come on, let's try.
Let's do that after.
Yeah, we can do that fire, rapid
come on.
fire after this.
I was gonna say another word that came
Yes.
to mind, and I think it goes a lot with the comments you've been saying, right? In the end, technology should be collaborative with humans, right? One of the things I love about AI is it helps us know ourselves better. So once we know ourselves better, we can see what our superpower is and what its superpower is. If Siri can tell me the hour, that's fine. It's good. Thanks, Siri. You can help me. This is how I can add value to you. So I think it would be fun if it's collaborative.
Collaborative, yeah.
Collaborative.
Yeah. Not a one-woman show. Okay. Anybody else? No? I mean, that would be one hell of an AI that could do all of those things, have all that empathy, be collaborative, self-critical, have love. That would be great to quantify somehow as well. Yeah. And I lied. That wasn't the last question. The last question that I want to pose to everybody here is who here is currently, or maybe after this talk, I don't know if anybody feels inspired, wants to have a hand in shaping AI in the future. Raise of hands. Yes? Okay, we've got almost a full room. Okay. To some of the people who raised their hands, I'll take two. How are you going to be doing that? If you want to share. Anyone? Yes?
I have been interviewing with some companies that are building AI stuff and talking to other companies, and one thing that I asked them and I've noticed is they are not talking to the users when they're building their stuff. Like they have their own ideas and building it on their own. So what I believe that it's going to, it can be like, it should be seen as a really good strategy to take the users as a collaborators on building the product, and not only will we like make the AI more human-centered because you'll see how it's impacting life, but also like I feel like it's a good business strategy to have them there.
Is that something you're doing currently?
It is something I am UX researcher and designer, so
Yeah, we love
job
We love
is
UX. UX is great. It's making
job
everything
is
better. So
to
thank you.
talk to people.
Okay, amazing. And one question for the holdouts who didn't raise their hand. Why not? Why don't you want to contribute to AI? You didn't raise your hand? Why don't you want to shape how AI looks like in the future?
So, remember Wikipedia?
Yes.
That's by all the users, right?
Okay.
So, Elon Musk wants to change this whole name of Wikipedia. Like, he wants to control everything. But Wikipedia is like, oh, you want to put some stuff on Wikipedia? You can do it, and then other people are like, oh, this is not good, so then you take it out. Same thing, right? Yeah, I actually have one of those.
All right. Well, yes. Last
Sure.
person.
I think the reason why is ultimately I feel like someone has to decide what they think is right when they're endeavoring in anything like this, right? And our cultural view and our lenses by which we pursue this is completely distinct, right? If we're choosing it from a Western perspective or North American specifically, it would look very different than, say, an Asian perspective or any other worldview. So it's very hard ultimately to say who should be driving that bus. Because when we view it here as an individualistic perspective versus maybe if I was in a pluralist type of group, then we view it as in what's serving the best interest of the people. So it's very hard in a way to say what's the right way to drive the bus, because you're saying, one of the questions you said is, how would I like this to facilitate improving my lifestyle? But Matt's statement in a way is we've tried to improve our lifestyle. We thought if we gave ourselves more and better and this and that, we would be happier. But we're self-medicating, we suddenly realize, actually, I feel more empty and more dead inside because I don't have what I think it's going to pursue and give me. And so one of the things in that question is, how should I, if I want to add to it? I don't know if I feel personally I would like to add to it because I don't know if it's going to fulfill me anymore or leave me just more empty.
Yeah.
So that's maybe a little cynical, but I know it's going to move forward, and I hope whoever here is part of that solution makes it better, but I don't know where that will lead.
Well, one of the closing things I would say is I don't think that's cynical at all.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I don't think that's cynical at all. I think that's a really healthy mindset to have.
Yeah, and ultimately my greatest hope is that we're able to harness the power of AI to empower more people to be able to know where they want to be spending their attention and to be able to have more capacity to do that.
Yeah.
And so you even just thinking about like, quite frankly, I just don't think working on that would fulfill me, so I don't want to. Great, ideally we're able to use AI to give more people more of that ability.
Yeah, that would be really beautiful. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our panel. Thank you everyone for all of your amazing insights, for your participation, for listening to us talk and making us feel important and smart.